Good morning. Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. I will kindly ask you to go to your seats so we can begin with this meeting. Thank you very much. Muy buenos días, damas y caballeros, si son tan amables de ocupar sus lugares para que podamos dar inicio a esta mesa plenaria. Si son tan amables de ocupar sus lugares, iniciaremos en unos segundos. Muchas gracias. Well, good morning to everybody. Thank you all for your participation and involvement in this meeting. Thank you. Our panel this morning is called New Dynamics of International Development Cooperation, South-South Cooperation, Triangular Cooperation and Knowledge Sharing in the context of development effectiveness. It is actually a very large title, may I say, but indeed a very ambitious discussion. I have proposed all members of the panel to address these issues in a very concrete and informal style in order to build a very useful and reflective dialogue. I'm not going to present each panelist with their very rich and very long resumes, which all of you have in your hand programs, but only with their current titles. We will have an opening remarks from our co-chairman and host. After that, the first round of the panel, followed by commentators from the floor, a feedback from the floor, and then a comeback from the panel, and go on with the second round of the panel. If we have time enough, we will open the micro for the free participation of different delegates from the floor. I will try to keep the timetable and to promote an open and a very richful discussion over here. As you very well know, new models and new actors like social organizations have changed completely the scenario of international cooperation. South-South relations or interchange plus traditional donors and social institutions with Southern providers are building new ways, creative alliances for cooperation. Even though many questions remain to be answered, how to get real effectiveness in terms of development, how to influence the design and implementation of public policies to establish new systems of development. I will ask first an opening remark from our host, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, Mr. José Antonio Meade. If you please, Secretary, please.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Muy agradecido
I am
por este espacio y
truly
esta
grateful for
posibilidad
this
de
opportunity
participación.
and possibility
Muchas
to
gracias a todos
contribute.
ustedes
I want to
por estar
thank
aquí.
you
Es un gran
all for
gusto
being here. It is
compartir
my
este
great
panel
pleasure
con tan
to share
distinguidas
this panel
personalidades.
with
Es un
so
panel
very distinguished
numeroso,
members.
no solamente
This is
es largo
a
el
numerous
título,
panel.
sino
It's
muchos
not
los
only a long title of this
reflejo
discussion,
del
but I
interés
see
y la
many
importancia del
participants,
tema.
which reflects
Mi
the interest
participación
on
en
this subject.
consecuencia será
My
breve.
contribution will be very brief. I will propose five premises that, in my opinion, are relevant to understand the subject and the trends of South-South cooperation, and I will present some proposals on which I think these panel members should reflect upon, and based on which we may come to certain conclusions. The first premise from Mexico's perspective is that the subject on South-South cooperation in international architecture is subject, and that is why this panel is so important, is subject to more official discussions and academic discussions. This is a very relevant subject which calls the attention of the whole world, and therefore is a subject matter on which it is worthy to reflect upon when it comes to global partnership. The second premise, the South-South cooperation is growing in volume and it's growing in scope. It has different modalities and a greater range of action of the South-South cooperation. The third premise or element, the big providers of South cooperation are on the one side institutionalizing their mechanisms to cooperate, and on the other side they are entering or trying to enter innovative schemes, and from this perspective, based on better elements to institutionalize and better elements to innovate, they are having greater impact in development. The fourth premise, despite this progress, however, we have to admit that many cooperation providers from the South are on the possibility and obligation to scale up our cooperation efforts since we are emerging economies and since we have accumulated successful stories that we may share with others. Fifth premise, as far as Mexico concerns, South-South cooperation is considered as a complement and not as a replacement of the North-South cooperation. We do believe that if the South stimulates its cooperation efforts, this should not imply that traditional donors decrease their cooperation efforts offered. Most probably throughout these panel discussions, some of these hypotheses that I have proposed will be questioned, some will be validated, but these are Mexico's perspective, pillars upon which this debate may take place. We do feel that it is the responsibility of the panel members to review how southern countries may play a much more active role and find their place within this new architecture for the development cooperation, how we may foster and try to institutionalize the knowledge exchange as well as best practice transfer to create advantage for all, and how we may ensure that the South-South cooperation will be a supplement of traditional cooperation, including the subject on triangular cooperation, which solutions and agreements we may reach in very specific subjects such as predictability of flows, transparency in operation, coordination between offerers, and what should be the metrics for follow-up, control, and assessment of results. In a nutshell, we do believe that this panel will be useful to analyze the pathway we have walked upon to reflect upon the future of cooperation and convergence of our efforts. Therefore, we gather here today, and comments, contributions, inputs, the work of the panel members will be more than welcome. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you for hosting this meeting, this global partnership meeting. I will call now our co-chairman of the meeting, Minister for National Development Planning of Indonesia, Madam Armida Alishabama. Please, Minister.
Honorable Minister Meade from Mexico, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you to this session on the dynamics of international development cooperation, South-South triangle cooperation, and knowledge sharing in the context of development effectiveness. Our appreciation to Mexico, especially Minister Meade, for co-hosting this plenary session with us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in an ever-changing and dynamic global situation, we have come to realize that development cooperation requires new approaches to address the increasingly complex development challenges. It requires innovative approaches beyond financing. It requires sharing of development experiences for countries facing similar issues and concerns. It also requires more participation from a wide range of development stakeholders that includes regional governments, civil society, philanthropic organizations, and the private sector. As the Minister of National Development Planning of Indonesia, I manage the decentralized development planning process for a population of around 250 million in 34 provinces. I saw disparity, inequality, and development gap occurs. We realized that strategic and smart policy interventions are much needed to minimize the gap. And here, I saw the importance of learning from other countries' experiences and sharing our experiences with others. Indonesia is championing knowledge sharing and hosted the first high-level meeting on country-led knowledge hub in Bali in 2012. We have identified the importance of strengthening knowledge sharing at the country level. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me now share Indonesia's experiences in utilizing knowledge sharing in developing development programs, especially on poverty alleviation programs. Learning from Brazil's Bolsa Familia and Mexico's Progressa, Indonesia launched the program Keluarga Harapan, or Family Hope Program, in 2007. The program seeks to improve the quality of human capital of the very poor households by providing cash transfers conditional on households accessing specified health and education services. From the lessons learned shared by Brazil and Mexico, Indonesia then adjusted the conditional cash transfer program into what best fits for Indonesia. Indonesia also has a national poverty alleviation program, a community-driven development program that empowers local communities in determining their own development pathways. Some lessons learned or takeaways include the successful targeting at the sub-district level, covering around 34,000 poor villages with 60 to 70% poor people in every community, and 30 to 45% women participation. The program also contributes to better community capacity in project planning, implementation, as well as good governance. These are exciting findings that can be shared with other developing countries. Indonesia has shared the knowledge on this national poverty alleviation program with 59 other countries, including Tanzania, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Timor-Leste. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 year left to reach the MDG targets. We have unmet goals, and countries are racing to meet these goals. These countries and regions are looking for new strategic partnerships based on their demand, with strong emphasis on developing knowledge sharing and capacity building support, especially within the cross-thematic issues to support their work for the post-2015 agenda. I look forward to hear the discussion today, and let us work on delivering more tangible results that can guide us for the task and the work of the global partnership ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. A very richful experience you have shared with the panel and with the audience. Indonesia has been working in this field. Let me introduce the members of the panel. We will divide the panel. The first round will address the issues of the SSC, the South-South cooperation, and the triangular cooperation. And the second part of the panel will address the knowledge sharing. Let me introduce first Minister of Finance of Bangladesh, Mr. Abul Mal Muhit. Very welcome. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for being here. The Director of the National School of Development, University of Beijing, Justin Yifu Ling. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for being here. Mr. Thomas Silberhorn, Parliamentary State Secretary of Germany. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for being here. Mr. Fernando Abreu, Executive Director of the Brazilian Cooperation Agency. Thank you. Let me introduce Madam Emilia Pires, Minister of Finance of Timor-Leste. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Deputy Permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, Magdesi Sidrosapol. Thank you very much. Jorge Dacoret Bagna, Executive Director of the Chilean Cooperation Agency from Chile. Thank you very much. And the Director General of the OFID, Suleiman Yasir Al-Herbish. Thank you very much. You're very welcome, sir. Thank you. Let's begin first with the issues of the SSC, the South-South Cooperation. I will ask the Minister of Bangladesh, Mr. Muhit, to address the audience with the actual portfolio of the SSC. From a very recipient experience, sir, from the view of Bangladesh, how are the new modalities of the South-South cooperation redefining its role in terms of concessional loans, granting access to less developed countries, loans, credit, investment, trade? What can you share with the audience? Thank you, Minister. Maybe from your position, sir. Maybe from your chair, if you like. Thank you. You have a micro there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Best wishes to the presence this forenoon, this morning. I'm a fairly old man, and necessarily I go back to history. I'm remembering today the conference of 1978, which we held in Buenos Aires and adopted the South-South Cooperation Program. I happened to be the leader of my delegation at that time and also the rapporteur for the main committee in that conference. So looking back, it appears that South-South cooperation has really come into being. It's really in existence. And even though many institutional apparatus has not been developed, it is working quite well. Let me just talk about my own country, which is some of the things that most people know. We have an experiment. We started an experiment in microcredit in 1976. By the end of 1980s, it was quite a successful program, and its main messages were that the poor are very good borrowers, and you can always give them assistance by providing credit without collateral. Just these two simple messages. No technology giving, nothing of that sort, no technical experience, nothing. This has now gone over all the world, and in my country in particular, the institution which began it is now contributing only about 1/3 of the total microcredit which is available in the country. And microcredit is an important element in the total credit flow that takes place in the economy, almost to the extent of 26-28%. It was from less than 4% to 28% in a period of 25 years. It has grown there. And it is indeed a very good instrument for tackling poverty. Another example, let me give, non-formal education, which was pioneered by BRAC, another private institution which is well known all over the world. BRAC is now operating in about 60 to 80 countries in the world. And this is one case where I find the triangular cooperation has worked. Mostly triangular cooperation hasn't worked. I'm sorry to say so. It is in the case of BRAC I find that it is working. BRAC is going from countries to countries, and they are being assisted financially in doing this from the various bilateral as well as multilateral donors. However, I must say, at the same time acknowledge that multilateral institutions, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and Sachada banks, they have been quite active in the field of triangular cooperation. And triangular cooperation is now, from Bangladesh, it is a noble event to have triangular cooperation with countries as distant as Chile. You see, this is the kind of triangular cooperation which has moved forward. The challenge still is first financing. I must, at the same time, although it's subject for next discussion, I must say, knowledge sharing has greatly improved all over the world. And that has primarily happened because of many think tanks and institutions of those kind who have documented knowledge, and that is readily available to most countries. This is one area where we have benefited from the storehouse of information that many of the United Nations organizations also have developed all over the world. This South-South cooperation has greatly facilitated trade and investment. You see, trade growth in many countries have mainly taken through the contacts that were made through the South-South cooperation. That's one area. The other area is that in migration also, it has been very successful, the South-South cooperation. We are, for my country, we have exported about 8 million, 8 million laborers all over the world, and we continue to export between 2 to 5 million every year. And I think I have a complaint, and that is the UN South-South cooperation. It seems that coordination between this institution and other institutions is not that good. We had proposed, Bangladesh, I'll take a few seconds, we had proposed setting up a South-South Innovations Institute. It has been welcomed by the South-South office, but it has not been more or less circulated elsewhere. The other institutions which may help us in that. Well, this is all. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much for sharing this very valuable experience, the microcredits in your country. Thank you. From the beginning, Secretary Mead and Minister Abishala established some of the key issues of the discussion. You jumped actually to the next topic, which is knowledge sharing. I will ask now from Beijing, the director of the National School of Development, Justin G. Fulin, former chief economist of the World Bank. Thank you, sir. What is your country's experience regarding scalable best practices in the South-South schemes, like tools, fields, expertise, or concepts? How can the impact of such schemes contribute to shape more effective South-South strategies? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, moderator. As you know, China is the second largest economy in the world. At the same time, the most dynamic growing country in the world. And as a scholar, I think that China can contribute to effective South-South cooperation in 3 dimensions. The first one, funding, which is expected by anyone. Because with the growing wealth in China, certainly China will contribute more and more funding to the developing world through bilateral and multilateral corporations. And secondly, China will also contribute to the South-South cooperation through trade and investment. China is a resources scarce country, and with a growing economy in China, certainly the large demand for resources, for commodities, will support the prices of resources and commodities. And we know that many developing countries, they are the major commodity resources providers in the world. And so this kind of growing demand will support their economies. And China will also become a major source of investment in mining, in infrastructure, and also in industrial development in the developing world in the process of China's dynamic economic growth. But more importantly, I think China will provide ideas how to develop a country in a poor infrastructure and a business environment. We know that China was one of the poorest countries in the world 30 years ago. When China started a journey of transition from a planned economy to a market economy in 1979, the per capita income in China was less than 1/3 of the average in the sub-Saharan African